Good afternoon, students from Pattani campus. My name is Pornpen Kongkajankiat. I'm a director of the Cross Cultural Foundation. Today, I am going to introduce to you the class in relation to citizenships. And thank you, Ajahn Asama, who invited me to join you today. I'd like to begin with who I am. I'm a director of the human rights organization based in Bangkok. We work also in the Deep South and also with the other minority group in the North and in the Northwest in relation to promotion of their human rights. And today I'd like to introduce to you how to become a citizen of the world. In comparisons, what I'm going to introduce to you is Universal Declaration for Human Rights. The beginning of this declaration, which is an international law, it started from a very sad political history of the whole world. It's about the genocide happening after the World War II. When the genocide happened, some of the leading country, including Thailand, had joined hands together and come out with a word and the promotion of peace and security. And that now we call them the United Nations. Thailand is also the leading founder of this United Nations, which is an intergovernmental organization. When the country from a different continent has come together, so they decided to come out with a document which is called Universal Declaration for Human Rights. In Thai we call it ปฏิญญาสากลว่าด้วยเรื่องสิทธิมนุษยชน There are 30 articles, and imagine it's like when we have the constitution. In Thai context, we have the law, the regulations, which is we call รัฐธรรมนูญ in the past we have many other constitution, and now this is the one that currently we are using it. However, we used to have a constitution of the year 2007, which actually coming out from a more democratic process. However, we have the coup d'etat, so we have a new constitution, and now we have the constitution of 2017, which that, as you know, there is a movement to redrafting it. So this is a kind of a concept of how we are being together as a citizen of Thailand. So every section of the country, of the nation, have to obey these constitutions. As the growth at the international context, we all have to obey, or we all have to be respected under these 30 articles, which call Universal Declaration for Human Rights. Let's start from Article 1. We will learn all the 30 articles in these sessions. Article 1 has said about liberty, dignity, and equality. In Thai we said เราทุกคนเกิดมามีอิสระมีศักดิ์ศรีและสิทธิเสมอภาคกัน This article more like a dream or a kind of a utopia that everyone is born equal. So it's starting with the concept where many other citizens, especially in a wartime, in a kind of a very unrest, they are not treated equally. They've been subject to violation. They might have been a victim of war, a victim of genocide, a victim of kind of discrimination. So this preamble is a very basic concept, which actually in a real world, in practice, is very difficult to implement. How we can create a society which have all the people are in an equal position. Second article is about racial It could be nations, it could be color of the skin, gender, and that we need all the citizens, including ourselves, to be respected regardless of our race, religions, color of the skin, and gender, and many others, including social status, including political view, including what we believe and what we are not believe, but we still need to be respected equally. I don't yet have the samples of what exactly happening, but I think you all are in the southern part of Thailand. You might have come out with samples of how you feel that you are not as respected as the citizen of the world under this article. Maybe Ajahn Asama could urge everyone to speak out about what is their experience in the class. Article 3, we are talking about life and liberty and including security. This again is a very important article because the United Nations, when it began 17 years ago, we still have the effect of the World War II, where millions of the people died during the war, and after the war there was also a kind of economic depression. So how the people need to be respected of the how they have their livelihood, no, to be still being free, have their liberty to do things, and at the same time have their own security. This article also very much affected the situation in your area, because in the Deep South, as you know, we have also different law that has been applied in the Deep South. For example, the martial law, emergency decree, and also National Security Act, and including the other criminal procedure that have actually affecting your right and liberty, and also sometimes security. And that's how we think this article, if we may have needed to amend our constitution, maybe we could also thinking about how the citizen of Thailand shall all be respected, even though we have the law which is actually violating our basic human rights. I may give you some example. For example, in relation to all the checkpoints. All the checkpoints in the Deep South, it's meant to give security for the public, but sometimes it has created insecurity for individuals. For example, you have been stopped by to get your ID card checked. It's not only that, sometimes you've been taking photos, and sometimes you were not able to leave the checkpoint at the time when you want, so you've been apparently temporarily detained in that checkpoint. It doesn't mean that all the security is only served for public security. It means also for security of an individual, including man, woman, girl, boy, kids. All of us need to be respected in terms of if we do not have any suspicious activities, we don't carry guns, we don't have come out with the blood over our body, maybe we don't need to be stopped by and being searched. But anyway, that is the condition where the martial law have allowed the checkpoint to be operating in the South widespread, and also has also some concern issue about right and liberty and security of individuals and also public. Let's go to the fourth article. This is an article which actually reflecting the situation in the past. It's about slavery. It's about how we being treated as slave in Thai we call That, no? So in Thailand we have abolished this a kind of relationship between human as That for a long time since Rama V. However, there are still conditions in the modern time that can considering to be violating this Article 4. For example, if you can think about the labor or the worker from neighboring country who have been kept in the boat for fishing. Okay, Pattani has also a very big fishing business, no, along the coastline, and also in Pattani town you have a very big fish market and also the port. We have also a number of human rights reports related to the slavery, modern slavery, under the fishing businesses. So people being trafficked, and sometimes they agree to go on the boat, but they did not agree to be treated as slave in the boat for a long month or long year. Sometimes they were not able to leave or not able to get on board on the land for a couple years, and sometimes they also have been left in an island far away, and some of them also being treated badly, torture, or even sad to say that throw their dead body or living body, like alive, still alive, in the sea somewhere no one know, no? So this kind of modern slavery is still a serious violation that's still happening, even though we have this Universal Declaration for Human Rights for 70 years, but we still have to find our way to actually abolish this kind of treatment, no? And slavery can also be subject to, if you may have heard, a kind of อาบอบนวด something about the place for sexual businesses. So a number of girls has been trafficked from far away hometown and then come out to be in the city or even in abroad in different country, and they have been trapped into a kind of a system where they cannot get away. It also they cannot get passport, they cannot leave the country, they only being locked up in a place where they have to serve sexually through those customers. All this kind can also being defined as the modern slavery, which is still a very serious human rights violation. Have you heard anything about this? The fifth article is about torture. So no one has the right to torture us, and also have no right to punish us cruelly and inhumane. This also has become a kind of adopted convention, a separate conventions, no? So Universal Declaration is an international law, but to implement it, sometimes we need to write an กฎหมายลูก if you may understand this, is a kind of a law which has become more in details of each of the way and how we can implement these articles. This article is an so-called an absolute prohibited of torture. Torture is a kind of violation that has been happening, especially in our criminal procedures, and especially in the Deep South. We have criminal procedure starting from the martial law, 7-day detentions, to 30-day detention under emergency decree, and also 84 days under the criminal procedures. So torture has been reported allegedly happening in the military camps, also during the transportation, and also during the time of interrogation. And if it might have happened. It's also end up into something called death in custody, and in the worst case, it could also be called enforced disappearances, where the torture victim could not return to society, could not return to the other criminal procedures. And so we at the moment are campaigning for an act which is actually are going to give some remedies and also kind of protections and also prevention of torture. You may have heard about the case of Somchai Nilapaichit. He is a human rights lawyer. Actually, he is from Bangkok, but he has been providing assistance to the victim of torture in the Deep South, especially after the gun robbery in 2004. And he himself also disappeared in Bangkok after allegedly abducted by the police, 5 police officer in Bangkok, and the trial has already finished many years ago, and the Supreme Court have found none of the police officer guilty. So that's why we come out with a draft law that can actually address the issue and providing more wider definition of damaged party, and also can assess to justice for the victim and for all of us, as well as we have also reported even recent time that young activists called Wan Chalerm still went missing. I do have another clip videos, a very short one to show you, and then we can discuss further for the Article 6.
บุคคลสูญหายบุคคลสูญหายไม่เหมือนกับบุคคลถูกบังคับให้หายหรืออุ้มหายมีคนจำนวนมากถูกอุ้มหายโดยเจ้าหน้าที่รัฐหรือโดยการสนับสนุนรู้เห็นเป็นใจของเจ้าหน้าที่รัฐโดยการอุ้มหายเจ้าหน้าที่รัฐจะใช้วิธีการต่างๆเช่นเชิญตัวจับควบคุมขังทั้งโดยเจ้าหน้าที่เองหรือรู้เห็นเป็นใจให้คนอื่นอุ้มแต่ปฏิเสธว่าไม่ได้เอาตัวไปหรืออ้างว่าปล่อยตัวไปแล้วเพื่อปกปิดชะตากรรมไม่ให้ญาติพี่น้องทราบว่าผู้ถูกอุ้มหายเป็นตายร้ายดีอย่างไรหรืออยู่ที่ไหนแม้ว่าไทยจะเป็นหนึ่งในประเทศที่ลงชื่อในอนุสัญญาระหว่างประเทศว่าด้วยการคุ้มครองบุคคลทุกคนจากการถูกบังคับให้สูญหายตั้งแต่ปีพ.ศ. 2555 แล้วแต่ประเทศไทยยังไม่มีกฎหมายกำหนดให้การอุ้มหายโดยเจ้าหน้าที่รัฐเป็นความผิดทางอาญานั่นเป็นสาเหตุที่ในคดีทนายสมชายนีรภัยจิตนายพรจีรักจงเจริญแม้มีหลักฐานน่าเชื่อได้ว่าหายไปหลังจากถูกเจ้าหน้าที่จับกุมแต่ก็ไม่สามารถเอาผิดเจ้าหน้าที่ได้รวมถึงคดีวันเฉลิมสัตย์ศักดิ์สิทธิ์และคนอื่นๆอีกไม่น้อยที่สงสัยว่าจะถูกเจ้าหน้าที่อุ้มหายก็ไม่มีการสอบสวนหากรัฐสภาไทยตรากฎหมายฉบับนี้ได้สำเร็จให้อัยการเป็นผู้ควบคุมการสอบสวนและการพิจารณาคดีเป็นอำนาจของศาลพลเรือนไต่สวนญาติพี่น้องที่ได้รับความเสียหายสามารถมีสิทธิ์ในการติดตามสอดส่องการดำเนินคดีและรับการเยียวยาจากรัฐ
Article 6 is more generally about equality, no? That means we also need each other to respect each other under this article where all the human dignity are equal. This Article 7 is very important. It means everyone equal under the law. That means everyone needs to be protected by the same law and equally respected. So this article is actually related to a lot to our criminal procedures, a lot also to our judicial personnel, including police, prosecutor, and judges. And also in Thailand, also in the Deep South, we also promoting this equal treatment under the same law by promoting the role of the paralegal, or we call them a human rights volunteer. So this is a kind of the handbook that we trying to promote this Article 7. So both the officer who implemented the law have the same understanding with us as a citizen who been subject to the law. So to have a better understanding about how the law have been deprived of our liberty or deprived of our freedom, it needed to be written, and that's why we think that the legal knowledge and human rights knowledge is very important, especially for your guys who are living in the conflict zones for 16 years. So the understanding of that law, which are actually purposely they are subject to upholding our human rights, but sometimes the implementation of the law are actually violating our human rights. So Article 8 is more about the judiciary. Judiciary is very important when it comes to protection of human rights. So we need an independent judiciary, and also we need the court to be functioned in the way that is promoting human rights and not violating or not discriminated against anyone. So we have a kind of activity that we work in the South. We have a legal aid and also legal training to lawyer and legal training to village volunteer. So each of us could be treated fairly when it's come to the court setting, or when it's come to where you were arrested, detained, charged, or being kept in a prison, going to the court. So when the citizens are not aware of their own rights, or citizen is not knowing about your rights under the law or your procedures of the criminal process, you may have thought that you've been treated unfairly. But sometimes you need to know what exactly you have the right to do. You have the right to present what, and you have also your legal representation. So your procedures by the law could be understand, and then each other could also have protected our own basic human rights, especially in the judicial process. Article 9 is very important. We have quite a big number of big population in Thailand who are so-called prisoner. We have 400,000 inmates in the whole country, and each of them needed to be arrested or detained by law. That means no one can arbitrarily arrest and detain without any charges. However, this could be also questions in the name of martial law and emergency decree, as all these arrests and detain were arbitrary or not, even though it might have come with the arrest warrant or arrest warrant that issued by the court, or a kind of, in the South you may know the word เชิญตัว a kind of invitee. That means you can be invited and go to the military camp for 7 days. You not even need to bring your toothbrush, you don't even need to bring your clothes, you don't even need to say goodbye to your family member. Sometimes you've been prohibited also for visiting. All these 7 days, could it be a violation of Article 9? I have also another video clip about 7 minutes talking about a mother, woman of the Deep South, that could show you this definition or importance of this article.
buku petai dekat nak ngorek tu tu mari dia. Dia boleh pergi tu yo pagi tu. Biar tu ambil 2 beradik. Oh, kejut was pengah tak ada nak itu reno lah, dia ayah pun tak ada kau tu. Lepas yo tak ada royak tu ambil tu buku gapo. Ambil di mana tak tahu kau pas yo duk berlaku banyak tempat ni. Jadi kita tak tahu tu kok kita ni ada 2 beradik ada kejut lah kau tu.
Tak khabar ke subuh yang hamba saya mai gerak betul ni kata betul dah gang-gang betul lah. Hamba saya apa iya mari apa iyalah. Kalau kata betul. Molek apa saya tak iya lagi bukan. Bukan betul ingat dia tetap pala. Ya tak pergi mula-mula tu pahak ni duk likung ya tu biasalah. Tengok itu kau pergi dah. Pun dah tahu tu yang mari apa mula-mula ni. Tak tahu tak benar-benar. Tak bangun lagi lah. Tengok khabar-khabar yang bergerak ni lah. Bergerak kata-kata itu ni buka. Jadi nampak dia duduk likung dah. Tak pun kalau kereta kot depan saja. Ada 15 lebih tak pun dia mata faktor rekod tu dah ya. Takut belakang banyak lagi kereta. Tidak hanya benar berlaku jenis tak ada atau hekan ada kali dah. Jadi semurun kita tengah-tengah berlaku jutu-jutu ni. Nampak tu sama kita di lagu akong. Set lagu akong itu.
Hari mula-mula duk 7 hari mula-mula tu mami ada pergi. Adik yo demi ke bah hari yang 2 tu pergi. Tapi ayah hari atau hari mula-mula tu yo buka tubek di pintu yo mari tang kereta pak pintu. Mahita tu duduk di pagar lah. Duduk pagar sekolah ambil barang. Mak kereta pergi. Hari yang 2 tu mami pergi lah. Mami pergi hari yang 2 tu dia turun mari. Hari yang 3 pakai tak ada. Tak ada turun tak lah. Masuk kita pergi peluk dia di kereta tu. Pergi kabak dia di kereta tu. Nak kecek pun tak berani.
Hari. Sampai dia suku. Untuk kali 4 orang duk le papan kocak 5. Habis orang masuk papan kocak merah. Malah ni tinggal 12 orang. Papan kocak 5 tu lepas laka kali laka. Ya, kalau hok papan kocak 5 ni ya ada kereta gimek tua ni 3 orang naik benar.
4 hari dah lah tak boleh duduk ya tu. Tak ada boleh duduk sikit pun ya tu habis kot tubuh. Ya itu. Ya tu habis kot tubuh ya tu. Nampak hari mami peluk ya biar hari ya kena habis tu banyak tu tak ada duduk hari tu tubuh panas mana tubuh ya mulut ni ngekoh.
Dia tu mula tengok tua tiap itu. Tak kurang ni malam-malam pun panggil pun boleh duduk dah lah. Jadi dah sepo mula malam mula kelak. Dah sepo dia mulai kena ambil kali main pula. Jadi betul.
Bini hok mulik kan okey bini. Dua beradik. Anak tu kan seksa hok yo. Sebab gapo lah ni tu boyo kena pergi tu. Yo dia tu buat dak buang yo takut jadi bet.
Kalau tu bet mana tu poita tu bet luar bet ni. Tu bet pergi luar bet ni di nampak dang rasa tegak geligo. Sepagi nampak ngayalan nampak. Sepo wajib hitam betul. Jadi rasa gak ah. Dia rasa sepo kejut benar betul betul.
Habis berapa sehari kita temuk kereta tu 500 dah sehari dia. Pak ayah bos kat berlaku, kerja gapo pun tak boleh. Sebab jadi habis. Jadi nak buat kerja gapo pun jadi tak boleh nak buat kerja tu dia ya lah ni pas. Kakak mamil tu tengok yo. Mata dak titel tu. Kalau ada pengamuli pengang yo pun tak ada itu gapo duk buat kereta deh pengamuli satu hak yo duk. Ngajar tadi ka pangan ada deh yo ni. Pahala ni tu baik ngajar pun jadi tu. Duk ngajar kau adik duk tanya lah tu. Bila bermuli nak kelik. Baju lembab tu baju jeans tu nak bermuli nah. Tu dek dia. Baju jeans ni. Baju kain jeans mana? Ni. Ni juga ni ha. Sepengang kalau misalnya tu kita boleh ganti hok yo buat kita sepengang tak cukup masa tak ada sore ni masa pengang habislah keluarga ke dia fikir situ anak ni ke tak ada sore pun kita biasa duduk baik tengok nak hari masa pengang tu saya tuna lah ingat
tak pun kalau dah semua nampak berlaku gapo nak buat gapo pun macam yasin juga ni.
Semangat diri boleh duk buat masa setengah coba boleh duk yo uji ya tak lepas dah ya kita kena tepuh belaka deh sikit banyak kita coba dia kita tu lah.
So the video have shown you the impact to the family of detainees and also impact of the rule of law. If it failed, it has been also created a lot of damages to not only the family or individual but also the systems. No? So our office has also been working quite a lot in order to promote the rule of law where this Article 9, Article 10, Article 11 has been a subject to where and how we wanted to protect our rule of law. So first, the young man in the video were not arrested by having any arrest warrant, and they have been kept into the detentions with allegedly torture. And also when they requesting for the bail, if you understand, we have our legal system, what we call its accusorial system. That means each of the individual who have been arrested or detained or charged will be subject to a kind of detention order by the court, and however the court can still granted their bail, which means they can be released on bail while the case or the court procedure is continue. If not, they have to spend time in the prisons, even though the court have not yet review whether this person is guilty or non-guilty. That means you losing the basic human rights of presumption of innocence. So the system supposed to have a kind of presumption of innocence where everyone will regard of their innocence before found guilty by the court. That's why we also have another activity in the Deep South and also in other part of the world. Is we call it the trial observation, because we wanted to promote the Article 10, where each of us, if we have to go to the court, we should have the right to the fair trial. The right to the fair trial, it doesn't mean start when we go to the court, but it also start at the time when you were arrested or when you were suspects of any kind of a criminal charges. So the right to the fair trial is a big issue in Thailand and also in the Deep South, and that's why we wish that all the students from, even though you are from political science faculty, but the legal system in Thailand is also affecting the rule of law and also our democracy and also right and liberty, and including it could creating unrest where people is not respecting law, no, that we don't want that to happen. Article 11 is very important. As I said before, is presumption of innocence. Each of us, if we were suspects of conducting or committing any wrongdoing, we are supposedly to be arrested with warrants, and we were informed the charge properly, and we can have the right to say guilty or non-guilty. And if we don't confess, we should have the legal representation. All every step needed to be respected, and so the presumption of innocence is very important in order to keep us, everyone, and keep us in a safe place where we not be treated as the convicted. That's how things are going around in a more civilized legal system. If we are not be presumed innocent, we will be presumed as guilty of those crimes that we did not commit. Then we have a lot of scapegoats, or in Thai we call pat, who been subject to criminal procedure but end up that they found non-guilty. But since they have spending days, months, a year in the legal system where they are not be able to be bailed out, or they have spent a lot of money in order to defend their innocence, it might also call in another term of miscarriage of justice. And so we have so many people who later been found innocent but spend 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, or 40 years, or even 2 days. It's already a violation of these articles. And I also have a question around the prisoner who actually not found guilty yet by the court, but they have to wear the prison uniform, and sometimes they have to be locked up by chain, coming to the court, sitting in the courtroom. So these courtroom in Thailand are actually a violation of this article, because if you presume innocent, you should not wear prison uniform, and you should not have chain on your body as inhumane treatment. So if we respecting this article, I wish to see the courtroom with the defendants just like in the Western movie, where they can wear a proper suit, standing up strongly and defending their innocent. If they found guilty later, they could become prisoner and then dress up as a prisoner if it's required for their security. Another article which is very important, next one is Article 12, is the right to privacy. This is a big issue as of now in relation to a lot of things around internet, social media, a lot of biometric, the DNA taken, the facial recognition, or even a kind of a record of your own in your ID card. Everything have now, all our private information has become public in a way that some people in some agency, they access to those information. For example, our ID card have the small digital information That means your information has been shared to many offices without your consent in a way, or your fingerprint, your photo was taken at the immigration office, or the photo has been taken at the business building when you enter into the building, or your DNA has been taken. The DNA collection is a big issue in relation to the context in the Deep South and also in the context of also the COVID situation, where I saw the news report that the DNA was collected from those who wanted to enter to Thailand during the COVID pandemic, and the DNA was not supposed to be taken by any officer except if they are investigation officer. However, in the Deep South, this DNA collection has been used as a tool to frightening or to threaten the population, and also some of the report has referring to that DNA was used also in the criminal procedures. So the right to privacy is a big topic, and we also needed to understand that some of the privacy supposedly to be taken away, of course, for security or for transportation. You have to present your ID during your trip on the plane, or you have to present your ID when you doing some medical in the hospitals. However, with the regulation was not yet applied for all, that means some of the right to privacy has been violated, no? So this is another big issue around citizenship, how to become citizen of the country and how to become citizen of the world, because you also using Facebook, you also using social media, which is all the data or big data or our private data has been shared already in the social media in the international company. If they are not free, but we are subject to also, even we pay, no? So banking is another area where your private information has been used. It also can be used for marketing. It can be used without your consent, or even your religion belief, or whatever you may thought it only you know about, but doesn't mean now the technology did not know what is in your head, no? So this is another big article that maybe we can express or we can learn more in other class, no? Again, on this article, someone told me that the right to privacy also can be considered when the military in the Deep South has come and searched the house during the night time. If you're talking about this to the security officer, they would tell me that, oh, if you go in the daytime, they would run away. We need to go in the nighttime to search and arrest them. However, each of the family have their own privacy as well. So that's why in the normal circumstances, you need a search warrant. You need the third party or court or a kind of another office to approve the search in the house. That's how right to privacy in our own family can be protected. It doesn't mean anyone can come in anytime. If you come in by law, you need a search warrant, but it doesn't really being like that for 16 years in the South. So this is a big question, how is this article is going to violating our physical privacy and also thinking privacy, like the information inside or our feeling inside in relation to all this technology that is coming in as a new threat. The 13 article 13 is about right to movement, freedom of movement. The freedom of movement can be limited is only in our nations. That means you can travel to any district, any village, any provincial without any permission. You don't need to ask whether if you wanted to leave Pattani to Pisanulok, you don't need to ask anyone. Actually, this article been respected in Thailand unless there is a situation where some of the students have no citizenship. You may have heard about our friends from the north who belong to other ethnic groups. Some of them have no citizenship. That means when young girls have been applied for high school in the province, she could not study in the province. For example, Chiang Mai. If she is in other district, she cannot travel because when you have no citizenship, you have to ask permission from the district governor in order to travel to studies. So this article are actually affected a lot to stateless person or the students who are still in waiting to get their citizenship. Sometimes people in the in that remote area, they did not obtain their citizenship from the very beginning. For example, the parent did not report the birth, so they have no birth certificate. When they're older, they could not get into the school outside the village because the school outside the village would request for their citizenship to be enter. And also if they allow you to study in the district level, if you go further for the study, you cannot go to study in the provincials or even in the university. So the right freedom of movement in the big sense is around that. But it also means if we are talking about the deep south, it also means all those limitations of your traveling. For example, during the time of conflict, the curfew, during the emergency decree under the COVID, you cannot travel from village to another village. You were subject to stay in one place for quarantine. All this could also be a violation of human rights under this article if all that justification is not enough. No? For example, if we already have no reporting of COVID patients, if the government still control your freedom of movement, it could be a violation of this article. That was example, no? And this is an article 14 in relation to refugee. Thailand have not come across with the issue of people have to leave the country due to persecution, but recent time we have political conflict. That's why this article is article that we shall respect the life of the people who have risk. That means it's not need to be definite that they're going to be persecuted, but it's a risk to be persecuted. เสี่ยงอยู่ในอันตรายเนาะ That means you can leave the country and seek for your asylum seeker or seek for your refugee status in another country. We have the report of refugee in Thailand in relation to Rohingya, in relation to the conflict in Myanmar, in Cambodia and Vietnam during the 1970, 80 or 90 when our neighboring country have war and many of the people might influx in the country, and we setting up the camp along Thai-Myanmar border or Cambodian or nearby Isan area. However, right now we also have the situation of political refugees, which mean those who been charged or unfair treated or threatened to be unfair treated in the court procedures, or being subject to risk of persecution by abduction or torture or disappearances, they might have requested to leave the country and get the protection, from the UNHCR, United Nations for Refugees. So this article has been promoted in a way that if we cannot stay safely in our own country, we can leave the country and become refugee and get the international protections. Next is Article 15. Article 15 is talking about citizenships in a way that all the people in the country, supposedly that we should have our legal status. The minimum requires that everyone should have their nationality. Nationality is a very important status that you can enter into different human rights. For example, I born here in Thailand, I have a nationality as a Thai. That means our human rights will be protected, that I have a birth certificate, I can enter to the school. If I'm sick, I can go to hospital, and if I'm in the right age, I can obtain the license of driving license or right to vote, and all those kind of social security is linked to a nationality. In the situation in Thailand, we also have the situation of stateless, or those people who is not have full citizenship. That means they were not being reported to authority when they were born in Thailand, or they were newly coming into Thailand, and that's why they still have their citizenships or nationality. Maybe I would also talking about the differences between citizenship and nationality. Nationality is more on the paper. That means you are obtaining nationality. You would have your ID card or passport when you have to travel to the third country, but it's also related to your citizenship rights. That means related to your voting system and also your right to be parliamentarian candidates, or you have the right to be a member of any kind of associations or assembly. I will not go into those, but I like to talk about the activity or activism that we were working as a foundation. We promoting the right to nationality because it's affecting to those other rights. For example, I like to give the example of the situation of the Karen in the western part of Thailand, in the national park called Kaeng Kachan. His name is Koi. Koi is he passed away 2 years ago at the age of 107. He was born somewhere in the jungle, very far away from the offices of any offices during Rama 5 or Rama 6, and so he did not have Thai nationality until we draw the borderline near Myanmar border, and happened that now his hometown is belong to national park called Kaeng Kachan. So someone like him have no nationality. That means he, under the law, he cannot own the land. So when the land has become in conflict with the national park office, who declared the national park much later than when he was born. So one of the year around 7 years ago, there was an incident where the national park officer have launched a kind of a operation trying to relocating the family of Billy, including the uncle, the grandfather Pu Khoi, from the nearby the top of the mountain to the lowland. So the violation that had happened is including burning houses, forced evictions, and also putting them into the land that they did not wanted to stay, even though they were belong to the area for longer than the national park office. So the citizenship of this person, including their family member, have affected their right to access to many other human rights. But even though they did not have nationality, it doesn't mean that we can violating their basic human rights. So the rights of nationality is, for us, is to access to other human rights, but it doesn't mean if you are lacking of nationality, if you are not Thai, that means you still being protected under the so-called Thai law and also international law. So the situation of stateless is a big issue, maybe not in the deep south, but in the northern part of Thailand and in the other part of Thailand, still have a lot of children who have not obtaining full citizenship. But I think in the south there are also some issue around those people who have two nationality, which is another matter. You have two, better than none, no? Number 16 is about the right to marriage. It's not only marriage, but it's also the right to be accepted or to build a family and on the consent basis, no? It also could be question of some of the religions believe that another partner needed to convert into the religions. So that is more or less like a cultural or religious practices. But Article 16 is just giving you the free choice to be married and then to build your families with your consent. When you grown up, that means it depends on the law of each country. How do you putting the age for marriage? It could be 17, it could be with the consent of the parents, but it should not be that young, no? In order to build up the strong families. Article 17 is now more about economic, social, cultural rights. That means the right to property. It means if you have owned something, no one can take it away without any lawful sanction or any compensation. So it's more like state needed to protect our right to property. It means if my house is nearby the highway construction, if the government wanted to build a highway, I need to be compensated. If my house is stay in the national park, if national park want my land as an ancestor land, we need to agree. It doesn't mean you can get forces, violence to take me away from my own land. All this is more about the economic, social, cultural rights. Another important article is Article 18, which is related to freedom of thought, freedom of belief, and each of us have the right to believe in whatever we believe in, including religions. Could be different from the other, could be different from minority, or it could be non-believer who is not believing in any religion, and we still have a freedom to do so. Article 19 is very important. It means when you believe about something, then you need also being respected when you want to express your belief or your thinking. This article so-called freedom of expressions. So none of the law, none of the forces could stop us from expressions if our expression is not harmful, is not hate speech, is not creating a kind of damage to any particular group, or even created a kind of violence. So freedom of expression is very important. It could could be also expanded into right to information, protection of privacy, and also many other things related to social media. So we may talk about this in other time because it's a very important article. So no law shall be enforced or implied to us if we peacefully or talking or expressing our opinion non-harmful or not hate speech. This is more on the right to assembly. When we get together, we have more power, as you know. So for example, labor union or foundation like us or any kind of association, when they get together, we needed to be protected by law, and we also needed to have rooms in order for us to protect our own benefit. For example, the labor union, that's a very clear one, or teacher union, they can also calling for the benefit of the teacher. Student union, they can also calling for the benefit of the of themselves to be treated non-violently within the school setting. So when they have those freedom, they can have a bargaining power, they can have negotiation power in order to promote their basic human rights. Okay, right to vote is a very important democratic way of being citizens. You have the right to vote. You also have the right to choose or to select your government. We have also questioning about election law that also consisting of how the MP or how the representation of your constituency is not coming by election. For example, those 250 Senate. It's written in our constitution, but anyway, we still have the right to vote at the time when the general election has been conducted. And so I agree that we need to amend our constitution in order to select our leader from democratic way, no? As we wish. Or the party have the right to promoting their policy. We have free right to vote whatever we want, no coercion, no threat and intimidation if we are not voting for the party that belongs to some groups. 22nd is about economic, social, cultural rights. Each of us has the freedom to become a member of society. That means you can earn or benefit from economic, from social status, and also from culturally. However, it's only limited to your livelihood, no? So that's mean all of this is mean that you can being a citizenship where you have freedom from want. That means you can be employed, you can be sheltered in the house, something that doesn't look like a slum or something proper, and you can have also receive wages. You can have also receiving some of benefit that the states has come out. For example, in some of the Western country, you can see something around the socialist setting where equal treatment or the income is generating more and non-discriminated. Okay, and this is the right to work, the right to choose your job, and also the right to be paid fairly. We have the issue around here in relation to the pay to girls and boys differently, even though we are working on the same job, same assignments. But you may not heard much about other sections, but if you follow the news, even the Hollywood star would also campaign that the woman not getting paid, or woman actress is not getting paid as equal as the men, no? and also other working relation in the company. Also, sometimes the woman is working in the same job that did not get the same pay. Article 24 is related to our employment. That means the employee need to be rest when they are undertaking their employment or working in the factory, in the office. There should be a labor law that is allowing their day off. So we may not have that problem as much as in many other countries, especially the what you call that, the labor force. They might have to work day and night, 2 shifts, 3 shifts, and they even get paid less than any other factory. That means we also need to be respected for our working hour. Article 25 is about basic human rights, which is very important in some of the country where you need food, shelter, medicine, and also other public services for you could call it a dignity or a good livelihood. This also so-called social welfare. In some of the country where the economic advantage is high, they could providing free services in many other aspects. However, maybe I would give example in Thailand. Even though we are the lower income country or developing country, we still have a very good healthcare system. So this means that the country of Thailand has respected this article, but in some area there might be also the issue of shelter or housing. We still have a lot of people living in the slum area or in a very congested area where people are not having a proper house or proper sleeping place. We still have the issue of refugee in the camp or urban refugee that they might have actually lacking of these basic human rights. So that means we need still to have a kind of an NGO or any agency that actually providing those humanitarian assistance to this population. You may think about prisons. The prison is another setting where this article could be violated. I also working in the prisons to provide the art therapy and also to provide a kind of a human rights violation in the prison. We have a very high number of prison population in Thailand, and the capacity of the prison is only for 100,000 people, but we have 400,000 prisoners or inmates in the prison, so that means it's overcrowded, and it could amount to the violation of this article, which we have to look into different prisons in particular, or can be also reform of a general policy around the prison in Thailand. The Article 26 is about right to education. Some of the countries have a kind of free education for all, including university levels. I think Thailand have quite acceptable policy and not violating of this article. So we have a compulsory education, if I'm not wrong, 12 years, no? And we also have free education until the primary school, I think. So anyway, we have a quite okay education opportunity for our citizens or our nation, our people in Thailand, including migrant worker children. So Thailand is quite generous in a way that the school nearby the migrant workers has also to accept the student from those migrant workers, regardless of their nationality or their paperwork. So it's called universal education for all, no? Article 27 is about the right to participate in a cultural and on the community that has perceived their own culture and enjoying their culture freely. It's also including other scientific inventions as well. Article 28 is about more of the freedom that people would have a right to be free and secure in their own society, and they can actually apply their right and liberty in a safe environment. Article 29 is about that people should be subject to the law and also not violating the other people basic human rights. 29 and then Article 30. So all this has become a kind of freedoms, liberties, and those freedom and liberty and basic human rights shall not be deprived by any means. No, all these 30 articles is actually help to upholding our basic human rights, dignity, and justice for all. I hope you understand this initiative by the UN, and this initiative has also have developed into a different conventions, and also each of the convention has also explained in detail of some of the article, which is very important for you to understand in detail if you wanted to be a citizen of the world and be respected, and at the same time respecting the others. This human rights principle has also needed an human rights mechanism that can help to protect ourselves, our community, and our also country, and as a whole in the universal setting. So Thailand is a member of United Nations, and we have actually been a founder of United Nations in 1945, and this principle of universal declaration has also been already in our constitution in some of the articles, but we needed to be amended and also to put into practice. That's why everyone been respected. Thank you.